First of all, let me say it's an honor to work for the people of this state. It's an honor to work for the people of the Northern District. Every one of us who are in public office are there not because we own a title, not because we were somehow privately anointed or publicly appointed. We're there because the citizenry chose us to go in and occupy that office in a manner of trust for the time in which we've been elected. I tried every one of these speeches, whether it's a civic club or a town hall meeting. We've done 65 plus, I think, in my district since I've been there, to always say, me and my staff keep very much forefront in our minds the fact that we work for the public, and these offices don't belong to us, they belong to you. So let me say thank you for allowing me to work for you. Thank you for giving that honor to me, and we know that you're the boss, and we keep that very much center of our mind. A lot's going on with the Public Service Commission. If you've read the papers lately, I don't have to tell you that. We've got a lot of issues on the forefront, a lot of things that are happening throughout our state that impact consumers, impact the business community, impact industrial recruitment, impact our state as a whole. Right now, I know we'll get into some other maybe hotter issues toward the end of the talk and during the Q&A, but I want to tell you about some things we're doing to make sure we keep a priority in our agency and in our office to make sure we're reducing rates and saving people money. I hear a lot of talk. I was a mayor, as he told you before, and during my time as mayor, we were fortunate enough to cut property taxes 2 times, not just once, but twice. First time that had ever been done. And I'm proud of that, but you hear a lot of people talk about property taxes and how much an increase on property taxes will hurt, and I agree with that 100%. Most Mississippians will pay more in 3 months this summer in utility costs than they will pay all year for their property taxes. The companies that we regulate, the charges that we regulate, affect Mississippians every single solitary month. It affects their bottom line if they're a small business owner. It affects their family budget if they're just working folks in Mississippi who are trying to struggle and make it. So every dime that we can safeguard, every penny that we can scrutinize of charges that go out to customers is exactly what we should be doing. Now the Bible says where much is given, much is required. You've all read that scripture. And I believe when you're given the benefit of no competition, and you've been given the benefit of selling a product that the public must have, can you imagine in a Mississippi summer, can you imagine in one of these 100-degree days, we saying, well, our family budget's just a little bit too tight. This month we're going to call Mississippi Power, Entergy, or Electric Power Association, just tell them to cut the power off this month so we can save on it. Imagine a small business owner throughout our state. Many of our small business owners who are forgotten, left out, not at the table. These small business owners who have to pay these bills and make a choice each month about their small business budget. They can't choose not to have power. They can't choose if they have operations related to natural gas. They can't choose not to have this utility service. And they can only get it from one provider. So where much is given, much must be required. And that's why I feel like that the strong stance that I've tried to take the last years that I've been on the commission is a stance not only I believe the people I represent would want, but also I think it's what's right for the people of this state. I would love to be the only guy in Lee County, Mississippi that you could buy your groceries from. I'd love to have that. I'd love if you wanted to have milk and bread, you had to come to my grocery store. And it didn't matter what my product was or what I charged, that would just be fine because you had to come to me. That is why it's important that the commission stay vigilant, stay totally affirmed in its commitment to bringing rates down, to fighting for every penny for customers throughout our state. And it's something that I'm not going to give up on as long as I'm on that commission because I think it's where the rubber meets the road. Again, most Mississippi families will pay more in the summer months for their power than they'll pay all year for property taxes. And I am just blown away by so-called conservative groups who continue to say that it's okay to raise people's power bills. It's okay to raise people's energy costs. While at the same time, and rightfully so, if you were talking about a 13 or a 20% increase in taxes on businesses, there would be marching in the street, and rightfully so. Where is the indignation? Where is the outrage when it comes to raising month-to-month cost for businesses? Where is it? It's bumper sticker babble. When you hear people talk about, I'm pro-business and I'm conservative, but yet I'm hush-mouthed and lock-jawed and gone mute when it comes to raising people's energy costs each month. Rick Bragg's one of my favorite authors. If you've never read any of his books, you ought to take a weekend and do that. He wrote a book called All Over But the Shouting. He gave a speech to the Alabama legislature as they were coming in a couple of years ago. The new legislature was coming in. And the title of that speech was Remember My People. And he talked about the families and the people in Alabama who are struggling to make ends meet. He talked about that lady at the Waffle House who's having to wipe a table right now and collect tips. And where is her voice in state government? Well, I would say, where is that lady's voice in state government? Where is that lady's voice when it comes to utility rates and increases? Where is the voice of the small business owners? Where is the voice of the people who are just struggling, who don't have a PAC, who don't have any high-powered lobbyists, who just are out there struggling day in and day out? Where is their voice? I feel like if I, as a commissioner, don't stand up for those people, they're not going to get stood up for in many cases. Not throwing off on one of my fellow commissioners, I'm talking about the people that I represent. Those are the folks who are forgotten. I remember when we were in the Kemper debate, and it's now $4.3 million, a guarantee of 260 jobs. If you do the math on that, that's $18,500,000 per job to create those permanent jobs. Time after time in these hearings, groups came up with letters, and some politicians took time out of their day to come over and ask us please to pass this thing. I got a letter from Governor Barbour who said that it would be awful and outrageous if we didn't change our stance and approve that. Well, let me tell you what's awful and outrageous. What's awful and outrageous is a senior citizen on the coast having to split a pill in half because she can't afford to pay her power bill, so she has to try to make her medicine go a little further. What's outrageous and awful is small business owners who are being hurt. They had already had Hurricane Katrina, then the BP oil spill, and now the thanks they get is almost a 20% rate hike on their power bills. That's what's outrageous and awful. What's outrageous and awful is the fact that this comes under the guise of phony conservatism and saying, well, it's okay, it's all right for us to raise power bills because of who it is that's asking us to raise power bills. It's ridiculous. The people of Mississippi deserve better. We deserve better to know that companies who have no competition, most of y'all are business people, you got to fight every day for the customer you want to get and fight every day to keep the customer you have. Our public utilities don't have that. It's awful and outrageous to think that those people have been left behind and forgot about throughout this process. We were promised that Mississippi Power could build this plant for $2.4 billion. Today it's $4.3 billion. Where's the end? There's no end in sight. It's not my hunch is that it's not going to come online on time, and the costs continue to soar. I said back in 2010, I brought a copy of my dissent to make sure I didn't say this wrong, but it is prudent to wait. I said on balance, it's prudent to wait until we see the future better. The electric industry is filled with continuous change and uncertainty. This proposal contains an inordinate amount of uncertainty all at once, with gas prices and technology and other things going on. With this amount of uncertainty, it's better to make small bets than large bets. Now, the decision's been made, and the train's on the track. Our job is to guard every dime at that facility and make sure we're saving as much of the customer's money as we can. But I think it's more emblematic of a larger problem. I think it's more symptomatic of a bigger issue at stake here. And it's about issues of who gets what benefits. I'm proud that Joey Miller and Andy Taggart are here from representing our rural small telephone companies. They can tell you we're fighting every single day to make sure we're getting as much federal money as we can get into the state of Mississippi to bring broadband out to rural areas. I don't hear anybody griping about that federal money. You see, I think we're not getting too much federal money in Mississippi. I don't think we're getting enough. We need to milk that cow for every drop we can get, because I would love to see us use money from California and New York and Illinois and Indiana right here to help Mississippians. We shouldn't turn that back. I don't see anybody fighting to say, let's not take the money that benefits our telephone companies. But who does it benefit when we raise rates as high as they've gone because of this Kemper facility? I think it's an issue we're going to grapple with in this state for a very, very long time. I said earlier, it's a train on a track. I don't know where it's going to stop, but it has great implications economically and great implications public policy-wise. You know, it was sold back in the press 3 years ago that, oh, this is a pay-as-you-go. Baloney. It's not a pay-as-you-go. It's a pay before you go. It's a pay me up front and let me use your money to finance my technology, raise your rates, and then maybe if it works, good. Maybe if it doesn't work, who cares? To me, that's a bad public policy. To me, that's wrong. And I think it leaves that lady at the Waffle House behind. I think that it leaves many Mississippi small business owners behind. It's interesting to see some of our bigger, larger manufacturers come to the commission and ask time and again for a special rate. Special rate. Give us a better deal than somebody else. Many times it's our casinos. Well, you can bet one thing. I will never support a special rate that alleviates anybody from paying their cost of this plant. It's not fair to shift that to residential customers. It's not fair for a system to be set up where those people are shielded from costs and the average guy and gal and family and small business owner has to pay. I have really and truly been amazed to see the lineup come before the commission of elected officials and others saying, please pass this on. Please do this. Please pass this plant. And not any one of them has said anything whatsoever. I said earlier, hush mouth, locked jawed, and mute when it comes to the impact on the family budget. When on earth did a monopoly's budget become more important than the family budget? When did a monopoly's budget become more important than the small business budget? And so I think we're going to live with this consequence of this action for years and years to come. There's been a lot of work over the last couple of years on this particular case and on this issue, and I applaud my other commissioners for working very hard to make sure, as much as possible from their point of view, that that costs are contained. I think that if it were left up to me, we would have waited to see what would have been best for the people of Mississippi. I think it's egregious, and it has a long-term policy implications that we're going to see the bad side of for years and years to come. It's a very interesting time to be sitting in the seat that we're sitting in. Where Mississippi goes now related to these costs and what it does to our economy is going to be something that I think all of us will have to live with for years and years and years to come. I said the last time that I was here a couple of years ago that these labels that get thrown around about pro-business, anti-business, you're not for the corporate world, you're anti-this, anti-that, they kind of go out the window at our agency. I voted against more rate increases than anybody on the Public Service Commission since there's been a Public Service Commission. There's not one commissioner in the past or otherwise that's more fiscally conservative than I am when it comes to spending the consumer's money. So all those labels go out the window. And it comes down to not what's a Republican issue or a Democrat issue or what's a right issue, a left issue, a liberal or conservative. It's what is right and what is wrong. And I feel like that we're going to see the perils of this public policy allowing companies to pay before you go, collect from ratepayers, and go forward. I feel for those 185,000 customers on the coast who are going to have to pay for this. Let's all hope that this plant works. It's yet to be seen. If it doesn't work, that's one more hurdle in this situation we're going to have to overcome, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. I was amazed by the support that came to raise people's rates. I'm still baffled by that in many, many ways. Let me close by saying this. Over the past, it's 2013, 6 years, we have worked together at the commission in lots of ways. I've told you about where we were split 2-1. But here's where we've worked together, and I think it's some things that have made a big difference in our state. We've looked at companies who have no competition but yet want to spend millions of dollars in advertising telling you how great they are. Well, you can't choose anybody but them. Companies like Mississippi Power who filed to recover $2 million in private corporate jet expense. We're working very hard at the commission to hone in and to scrutinize every penny that customers pay, and we're not going to give up on that. I'll close with this little story. Y'all all remember Charles Carrault, who was the guy that had a show on Sunday morning. I think it was On the Road with Charles Carrault. One time he was up in North Carolina at a guy who was a master carver. I mean, this fella could take, Andy, he could get a stump out of an old river bottom and put it up on the porch, and before you knew it, he carved away, and there would be a yellow lab. He'd carve a little bit more, and there would be a blue heeler. And there was a lady there with their two sons. She said, "Sir," said, "I want to ask you something." Said, "How do you do this masterful work, this art that you do carving?" He said, "Oh, it's real simple." Said, "I get up every morning, say my prayers, get in there and eat my breakfast. I take this old double X case knife," for y'all country folks in here, you know what I'm talking about, a double X case knife, "and sharpen it." He said, "I pull that stump up there and I carve away everything that doesn't look like a dog." Well, our job at the Public Service Commission is to carve away everything that doesn't look like the public's interest. $2 million in corporate jet expense, carve it out. Ads, bragging on companies that don't even have any competition so you can't choose anybody else, carve it out. Bloated, and I say the word bloated, executive expense salary packages, we're working to carve them out. And we're going to continue carving on your behalf and on the behalf of the lady at the Waffle House, the small business owner, the entrepreneur out there trying to make it in this state, and the people who have some competition. It's our job to hold these companies accountable, and I'm bound and determined that we do it. So thank you very much for letting me be with you, and I know if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.